Hello and welcome to another edition of WoW with AI, or Ways of Working with AI, where we talk with some of the leading thought leaders of data analytics and the space of artificial intelligence around how has the field evolved and their insights. And with me today, I have one of the leading thinkers, who's I believe one of my go-to people for many, many years, is Pavi Gupta, who's been has a very interesting background. He's been a leader of marketing insights to data analytics and AI teams across multiple organizations, large consumer goods organizations, Coca-Cola to Johnson and Johnson, and most recently he was the data analytics leader for SC Johnson and Company. So, Pavi, welcome, and super excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Amaresh. Thank you for the opportunity.
So Pavi, I mean, you and I obviously have talked for many, many years, but for the broader audience, you want to kind of lay out briefly around just the arc of your career, kind of what all the things that you have done, so that we have the context around some of the things that we go into after that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm originally from India and I started I call it my schooling in research was on the agency side. Started with a company which is now part of Qatar called Research International. That gave me very good grounding on the 101 of how market research is done. One of the first clients I worked for was Coca-Cola. So 4 years into my research experience at Research International, there was an opening at Coke, and I joined them, headed up the function in India, and then eventually had a regional role out of ASEAN, based out of Thailand, and then finally got to the US, part of the corporate team in Coke. From 2010 to 2015, I was heading up shopper insights globally for them and also doing all the ad hoc work for still beverages. Left Coke in 2015 and joined Johnson and Johnson. Was with them for 6 years. Started out as head of insights. Eventually, the role expanded to both insights and analytics. And we also had an acquisition on the West Coast, which was a much more B2B refractive and cataract surgery. So very different experience there. Johnson and Johnson Vision, and I was missing like the CPG pace of how you bring products to the market because in a med device company, it can take anywhere from 8 to 15 years from an idea to come to life because of clinical trials and all that kind of rigor that is needed. So I joined SC Johnson, which, as you might be aware, is a family brand, a family company with a lot of brands. It's a house of brands. We've got brands like Ziploc, Windex, Raid, Glade. So four different categories. It's been an exciting run, and now, I left that job recently and looking for my next chapter.
Wonderful. So probably amazing career, amazing track, and in some ways, kind of your career is also aligned with the all the technology innovation that has happened in this space, right? Market research is very different. In the meantime, analytics and insights is completely different. So, how have you seen the evolution of kind of on one end, well, basically marketing insight and analytics? How has that evolution happened? And maybe with one example as what was really cutting edge then, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of passe right now. Like, what would that be?
So it's interesting. When I started working in market research, I think nobody wanted to get into market research. It was only people who didn't get picked up anywhere else they used to go. And, I was actually trying to get into advertising. Um, and fortunately for me, they could see that I couldn't make it and I could see it myself. So I didn't make it to any of the, and then, there was a friend of mine who always used to say like, hey, you should go to market research. And I was like, this guy doesn't like me at all. And I interviewed for three different roles on the agency side, and I got three offers, one of them being a spot offer. So obviously they saw something that I couldn't at that point of time. Started there, started in quant research. Even within market research, the quant and qual disciplines were very
Yeah.
siloed at that point of time. And then, of course, as I started working, I think it was during my time at J&J, actually beginning in Coke and then more in J&J when the big data revolution was happening and social data started coming in, and there was this entire move towards real time data and real time decisions and all of that. And I actually had a leader in J&J who challenged me, right? I took him through, he was a new leader, he had just joined the organization. I took him through the work we had done, which I used to consider as cutting leading edge work. And he listened to everything and he nodded his head and he looked at me and he said, yeah, but this is all old school. And again, I was like, okay, he doesn't like me. You can see a theme there. Anyone who doesn't agree with me, I feel they don't like me first, right? That's my immediate first reaction. And then I started internalizing what he said because I literally went through a grief cycle through that. And I was like, maybe there is something he's saying. And what he was trying to say is, he said, listen, there's so much information that consumers are already sharing with us. We call this the digital exhaust. It's like, yes, I like the insights you're bringing, but why are we not tapping into that to get these even faster and maybe deeper and maybe cheaper, right? And I started kind of changing that mindset in my head, saying that is actually true. I said, okay, maybe time to also reskill, upskill myself. I went through a digital, marketing course at MIT. I went through a data science, 12-week program on Columbia, online. And I started learning what's going out there. And I was like, oh my God, why am I closing my mind to this? There is so much happening outside. And that's when I started coming around gravitating to what I call as power of and thinking. And really the power of and thinking is it's not about qual or quant. It's not about insights or analytics. It's not about, data or AI. It's about and. And really, if I think about myself, I'm a business practitioner. I'm in the business of business, right? So I'm not a pure research person who is trying to get to the deepest insight, but without knowing how you're going to leverage it commercially. Everything I'm doing has to add value to the organization. And so the moment you start thinking that way, and the moment you start thinking where the insight is coming from, whether it is from a data factoid, whether it is from an AI thing you ran, or whether it is a ethnographic study or deep qualitative research, it doesn't matter. The business doesn't care. What the business cares for is, are you helping me unlock value? Are you helping me get to a segment that I didn't think about before? Are you helping me connect deeper with a segment that I'm already communicating with? Are you helping me find a product that, that can actually be the next big thing for us? So these are all means to an end. And that's when I started thinking. So that's why my last job at SCJ, actually, I went out of the insights area altogether.
Interesting.
And it was a CDAO role reporting to the CIO because, again, it was kind of adjacent and it was around this space of like what you can do with data. But again, there I feel like there's a lot of information and data and knowledge you can do. But again, you need the imagination of what you can do with it to unlock value.
That's very fascinating. So one quick question is: has market research changed over the years towards this, or is it you have changed?
Actually, market research has changed, right? It's become cool now.
Right.
So thanks to AI and thanks to big data, and suddenly it's cool. And people now you're getting the best talent going into this, which is great. It's a great tailwind, right? And I think my evolution has tried to kind of initially I was lagging that change.
Yes.
Now I wouldn't want to say that, but I want to lead the change. Right. So I don't know whether I'm already leading or not, but I want to lead the change because there's no point in lagging because, one of my mentors, Stan, always says like, you change, otherwise you'll be asked to change.
Yes.
And so I was actually asked to change by my leader in J&J.
Yes.
And since then, I've been on this journey of, okay, I need to change faster than,
You brought up AI. Okay. And obviously, it is kind of, in some ways, even though you may be for folks in data analytics forever or market research, everything's changing. The whole paradigm is changing, right? What is really changing in your view, and what still stays the same? Like, how do we sort everything out with this whole? Now, I mean, if you think about, I mean, we have had discussions of synthetic data, there's that all kinds of things that are kind of coming in there, and there's a bunch of things. Like, how do you kind of make sense of all of it? And like, what's your guiding principle?
yeah. I think with everything that is going on with AI, again, this is almost like the industry is at that cusp, right?
Right.
And anybody who's resisting this change will be asked to change, right? Because it's here. It's here. The thing is, we need to figure out how do we leverage this power rather than resist this as and pretend that this is not going on, right? And so we need to, I think we need to embrace it. In my mind, I like to think about a very simple framework for insights. Okay, it's a 2 by 2, and one axis will go from known to unknown, right? So you can do research to find out what you already know or what you don't know, right? And the other side of the axis would go on intuitive to counterintuitive. Okay, and so the bottom left box ends up being what is known and what's already intuitive. Now you would question saying, why are you researching that? But you know what? 80%, and I've been through very large organizations, and this is not a function on how bad they're excellent organizations, but this is how the business is structured. 80% of their time, effort, money, people are focused on what I will call this bottom box of validatory insights. And why are they needed? They're needed because they're needed for day-to-day decision making. Should I run this campaign or should I not run this campaign? Does it meet the minimum benchmark that I set for myself? Should I launch this product or not launch this product? I've already got the research and inputs, and I think I'm onto something, but I want that validation, right? So I think the bottom box is what sucks away a lot of our time and resources and energy, but it's definitely very needed. But it's also where we add the minimum value, because all you're doing is you're actually reinforcing what you already knew, right? But you're quantifying it, you're getting a basis for it, and you're getting statistical analysis which tells you, yes, this is a safe choice to make. So this is where I feel AI can play the biggest role for us today. Because, hey, imagine if I can leverage AI to interrogate the data that I already have to quickly give me those answers, which is what my leaders or my stakeholders or my partners are looking for, then I've suddenly freed up this time, space, and dollars and budget that was going after trying to do what they were asking me to do. Now, what do you do with that time?
Yes.
It can't be a coffee leakage. In the Gartner conference, they call it a coffee leakage. You're getting AI efficiency, but now you're going to go and have another coffee, right? So, what you do with that time is to say, let me now start pushing the boundary towards getting insights to what I don't know, right? And then that is where the second bucket of insights will be, which is I don't know, but they are still intuitive. It's like, oh, I didn't know this. Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. So there is value to organizations through that. This is what I
What
will
would be an
loosely.
example of like intuitive? I don't know what intuitive.
Yeah, it could be something like, people are not recognizing, people are moving towards healthy products and they are concerned about their health. And that's why they're cutting down on a lot of calories. And now the dietary patterns are changing
Right.
and carbs. So it can keep up. But anything I say in this space, you'll be like, okay, if you come and say like, 25% of the people have stopped having calories altogether. And 50% of the people have now started looking for fiber when they're picking up a product. Okay, I did not know those facts. And you give me those facts, you'll be like, yep, this is good. But it's intuitive.
You just
It
don't
makes
know the
sense.
rate of change. You know the change is happening. You just don't know
You
the
know
rate.
the change is happening. You've not internalized the rate of change, and you can relate to why the rate of change is happening. You can relate to it at a human level. You're like, yeah, this makes sense because it either gels for you or it gels for people and then you're like, this is intuitive. So this would be what I call as like incremental insights, and this is where now you need more humans with partnership with machines to mine some of the known data, but like you need the humans to push the boundaries of the unknown and the intuitive. And then the last bucket is what I will call as transformational. And the transformational insight is really now you're pushing the boundaries of like what you don't know. And actually, it's counterintuitive.
Right. Right.
Okay. But there's one thing I missed in this construct is everything I'm saying here, whether it is validatory, whether it is incremental, or it is transformational, everything is true. It has to be true.
Right. Right.
It cannot be a hallucination. It cannot be a hypothesis. It cannot be something you imagine, but it is true. So if it is true that there's something that I did not know, and it is true that this is actually counterintuitive, now you might be onto something that can actually disrupt the marketplace.
Right.
And it could be game changing. And this happens it's like lightning strikes very few
Right.
times. Even in my like close to whatever I want to say 20 plus, but it's far more than that years of experience. I can count it on, in one hand on my fingers. So it's depressing at times. It's like, oh my God, it took me 5 years to come up with one because I only have five examples. But this is how the business and the nature of work is where it's not so easy to get to those kind of transformational insights on a very regular
What
basis.
would be an example? If whatever you could share.
So one example could be, this is something that we had uncovered around, when you think about people are now preferring to move towards what I loosely call as grandma's wisdom or ancient wisdom. Okay. And so that sounds intuitive, right? It's like, yeah, this is tried and tested. It's always been around. And whether it is cleaning products, whether it is products I'm consuming, whether it's products I'm using, there is this kind of, retro back, kind of move towards
Right.
let's go to things that are, but it's counterintuitive because sometimes these are just based on anecdotes. I should use, this product. I should use vinegar for
Right.
cleaning because it's simple. It's one product. It's acidic. It cleans very well. And you're like, yeah, but I have this new emulsion which has been researched at a molecular level and it has these active agents and enzymes and they actually work better. How is it? It's counterintuitive that you can go on lack of science to actually get to the answer. And that is where like the insight really is. People are looking for simplicity. People are looking for tried and tested wisdom. People are looking for, comfort and because a lot of the new science things
Right.
sometimes don't pan out.
Right.
So, okay, now this makes sense. It's counterintuitive that you're going to simplicity rather than, more science, but now I can understand it. So that could be transformational. And then you say, okay, I'm going to bring up a line of products, which is now going to be on this ancient wisdom or trusted wisdom and grandma's wisdom, whatever we want to call it, because that's what I see
Yes.
people are moving
So
towards.
one related question to that, right? I mean, yes, you will. I mean, there's a lot of art in what you just described, right? You need to understand and put a mental picture and framework together. How are you sure this will work? In some ways, the 80% confirmatory is there because you also have the kind of the couch of data. There's a lot of stuff kind of proving, and you kind of bring it all together, and you can prove. You can basically say, "Hey, right, this is what the data says." The last example that you gave, the counterintuitive and everything, by definition, there's a lot of judgment along with some data points, and there's a way of interpretation around it. So how do you bet behind it? And these are like sounds like big bets.
Yeah, and this is where qualitative research plays a massive role because it's about understanding the human psychology. It's about understanding the cultural context. It's about understanding, lives of people and, anthropologically understanding, making those connections with behaviors and habits and, manifestations with what I'll call as deeper drivers, what's beneath the surface, right? If it's an iceberg, you're looking at the tip, but it has a very big base that is actually guiding it to move in a certain direction or momentum. So that is that piece which you would try to get to. And like I was telling you, today what happens is organizations don't have the luxury of time to go and go that level of deeper because there's so much demands and needs in doing, and a lot of that is getting completely bottled up in or kind of jammed in the validatory work. And this is where I feel if you start leveraging AI as a way to free up your time and your resources, then you can actually go and do deeper work. And it could be ethnographic, it could be design thinking, it could be again. It doesn't mean it necessarily needs to be like 6 months. You can do it smarter, faster, but it does require the level of rigor that it needs. It's not superficial. It's not just looking at what went. And like my pet peeve here with a lot of people in the industry is and this is not the research or insights people, but a lot of people who don't understand insights is they would like to take pot shots at focus groups
Yeah.
because they'll be like, yeah, I went and sat across the one-way two-way mirror
Right.
and I saw what people were saying, and that's what we should be doing. But hey, this doesn't make sense. I can easily do this myself. But you don't understand the beauty of the unlayering or kind of going deeper. It's not what people are saying, it's what they're not saying, or what they're actually meaning, or what they're intending. And this is where the psychographic understanding of people bringing the ethnographic understanding, the cultural understanding, and then piecing it together like pieces of jigsaw and unraveling why are they saying what they say or why are they not saying what they should be saying. And that is where you start unlocking the deeper insights. And again, I'm not saying go do more
Yeah.
focus groups. All I'm saying is, what one thing I've learned in so many years of working in this space is there is no one single silver bullet. Oh, let me just do this way and I'll get to deep insights. It doesn't work that way. An insight by function will be about how do you connect pieces and synthesize that and go deeper. And it's the left brain and the right brain. It's not just art, the science, but it's also the art and the human understanding. So the great insights require all of those things to happen.
And that brings to mind the third board thing I wanted to talk to you about. which is teams. I mean, quite frankly, probably where we really enjoy talking to each other is, I mean, because of the background that you have and almost the appreciation for, in some ways, I would say in the world of like data science and AI, I mean, it sounds like quaint to talk about focus groups and even surveys. I mean, that's just a, right? I mean, you don't hear a lot of that, right? And those things in my mind are starting to kind of get into two different directions at times, right? So question for you, and you have managed both teams, is if you are a data analytics leader, a lot of our listeners are data analytics leaders or have an aspiration of career in it. Do you see those two skill sets? It's like qualitative and then quantitative and then computational. They're almost like three different things. Do you see them as part of one team? And if they have one team, I mean, if you have done that in the past, how have you managed it? Because that itself is hard. And how do you even think about a team structure around it?
Yeah. I think like, the team structure, should it be one team? Should it be multiple teams? I have been on different sides of the spectrum. I've led on the insights team. I've had very strong analytic leaders as peers and partners. I have led analytics team and again, vice versa. I have very strong, people with, and then same with, the hardcore computational, the data science and now AI and all of that. I think do these come together or not is more a function of where the organization is, what the organization's maturity is, what even the product and the services that they are bringing to where it matters in terms of where it can add value. I think those decisions should be taken on the basis of is are these teams going to add more value sitting together or will they add more value sitting
But
apart?
where I'm going with it is how do you bring the common view and the common framework for people to work
Yes.
with each other, no matter where they sit organizationally?
Exactly. I think the value here is in bringing the sense of appreciation of like for the call researchers or the human researchers, like get them to appreciate the power of data analytics and advanced analytics and AI. Likewise for for the quant leaders, like help them understand this human understanding piece. I will tell you through my most recent role, and I said this even in a town hall. I was like, in this world, the one of the most abused words is insights, because the world of data and analytics, like everybody just uses the word insights very easily and very loosely. And a piece of information, a fact, not even a fact, maybe even a factoid, is not an insight, right? And words matter over here. Because an insight is something that actually connects multiple points of data. It brings the not just the what is going on, but the why it's going on and inspires the how can I use this information. And that is where the insights play a role, right? And for every data scientist, they need to start with a hypothesis. They can't just go and say, let me mine data. They need a hypothesis. What am I trying? What could be going on?
Yeah.
And that is where the human understanding and part comes together, right? And now, if you're beginning to imagine what could be and what might be happening, then it will help you, focus on actually making your models work harder for you, making your algorithms work harder, because then you know what you're trying to solve for. And even if it doesn't, then it actually tells you to pivot in a different direction. So many times, a hypothesis being proven wrong is a great outcome because now you've got another, avenue to pursue, right? So I think, again, I think the one single thing that I would like to inspire and unlock people, irrespective of which side of the spectrum you're coming from, is curiosity, right? So if you're curious, then you will be willing to listen to value that another side of the equation might be bringing. And if you're curious, then actually you'll be better at what you do because now you're trying to make sense of like what you can see and what you can't see.
Right.
And so that is the piece I feel that can be the, the red thread which brings these teams together. It's like we are all trying to be curious because we are all trying to add value to the organization.
One kind of quick follow-up question to that, right? I mean, there's a lot of study I'm reading, and there's a lot of emerging research right now on frameworks, which says essentially if knowledge becomes a commodity, curiosity has a huge value. To your point, right?
Yes.
How any tactical tips and tricks that you have said, whether you're talking to your kids, whether you're talking to your team members, like how do you get people to focus on being more curious? I mean, is it something innate or can you teach
Yeah.
that? I mean, any thoughts or ideas?
Yeah. We could do a full podcast on this. I have a lot of passion for this space. I feel the world needs more curiosity. And what is stopping everyone from being curious? It's very easy, actually. You talk about emotional intelligence and you talk about intellectual capabilities, right? And so IQ versus EQ. And there you start arguing nature versus
Right.
nurture, right? It's like, okay, this is the genes I was bought with, or this is how I have learned through the years. And so, can you change your EQ and IQ is doable, right? You can, but it's not going to be instantaneous. But CQ or curiosity quotient, you can change this in a flip, right? And the only thing that is holding you back from not being curious is just self-realization.
Right.
It's just that re-understanding or grounding of why am I not being curious? That
But
self-awareness can
how do
bring
you
your
get
curiosity.
how do you get your team member to be curious? Like, is there?
Yes. So we would do simple act. We could like one of my pet ones is like I would say like, hey, just fold your hands the way you normally would. Go on, you fold your hands the way you normally would. Okay. And now just change this the other way around. Whatever was inside and whatever was outside, just change it. Just change it. And you're like, whose hands are these? I don't recognize these hands. These don't. This is very uncomfortable. These are not my hands. These are your hands, right?
Yeah.
Because I think nature or evolutionary biology has wired us to not be curious. I mean, we are curious. Like who's the most curious people in the world? It's children.
Children. Yeah.
All of us were
Yeah.
children. None of us became
Yeah.
adults. That means all of us were curious. And then the world beat us down to stop asking the questions, and we stopped asking questions. And the reason I say evolutionary biology is because the brain uses your maximum energy, right? 80% of your energy is used by brain.
Right.
So then the brain likes
Yeah.
patterns and it wants to stop thinking and optimize energy because we don't know.
Yeah.
The cave person did not know when the next meal is coming.
Yeah.
So over 50,000 or 100,000 years of evolution, you were wired to like just go for
One
patterns,
time.
right? And so you need to hack it. And how do you hack it? You hack it through awareness. You're like, why am I not doing this? Hey, when is the last? I even designed a survey and I said, like, when is the last time you watched a show which was not in your native language? When is the last time you ate food for the first time in your life that you'd never tried before? When is the last time you went and tried to, talk to a person who completely looks different from you and try to get into their shoes? And that awareness, so we said, okay, go fill this questionnaire. And if you're below if you're 5 and below on this, like you just need to be a kid again,
Interesting.
and just ask the questions and just be more aware. So now I don't know. I think it comes from inside, but I feel awareness itself makes the change. Awareness, self-awareness, like why am I not being curious? Why? There's no reason. Like how many times if we have the same commute every day, right? And you do it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and one day you're like, when did that building come up?
Yeah.
I never saw it. It's a full building because you are wired to not see. You're wired to just follow your pattern and you're wired to not be curious. We need to hack it.
Awesome. Then, like with that, Pavi, that curiosity topic, and it's just a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for coming over, sharing your insights and ideas. And we'll obviously continue the conversation in very different ways, but really appreciate all the nuggets of information and insights, the true sense you've shared with us.
Thank you so much, Amrish. Thank you.
Auxo AI. What if? What's next?